much. Good afternoon. Is it it's still morning. Time flies. Good morning. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today at Glasgow University at this, I think, very important conference on character, culture and values. This morning I visited the Army Cadet Force in Broxburn, who has a very important partnership with Broxburn Academy. So I was seeing some very important developments, a very important partnership between the Army Cadet Force and Broxburn Academy, where as part of the curriculum, as part of the timetabled curriculum, young people get the opportunity to study for qualifications via the Army Cadet Force in Broxburn. And it was a very exciting, innovative opportunity that very much chimes with the young workforce agenda. So as I was leaving that visit to come here today, the Colonel told me that there may well be some cadets in the audience perhaps later on today, so I thought it was important, given the subject matter of this conference, to mention where I'd been this morning. It is great to see so many people coming together to talk about how best we can support young people to deal with the complexities of life and learning. And I'm particularly delighted to learn that the involvement of young people has been absolutely key, a key part of this conference process. And our aim is to make sure that every learner gets the right help and support at the right time, and that means listening to what our children and young people actually have to say and really listening to what they tell us. Young people need to be given a voice in those big decisions that affect their lives and those big decisions that affect their education, and that's why the Scottish Government in recent months has had unprecedented engagement with children and young people through the Children's Summit, and that's to help us really engage and really understand and to be really tuned in to the views and aspirations of our children and young people. And of course we've got the Year of Young People 2018, and that will be another very exciting and important step on this journey. The experience of our children's learning in schools here in Scotland, I believe, has changed greatly for the better in recent years. We have Curriculum for Excellence, which is underpinned by the values of wisdom, compassion, integrity and justice. And we have a range of topics and themes that offer very interesting ways to deliver the curriculum and have developed approaches to learning that challenge and motivate learners, to help them take responsibility for their own learning and to develop new thoughts and ideas. There is also Learning for Sustainability, which is a set of values and approaches to teaching, learning and leadership in schools that enables young people to build the values, attitudes, knowledge, skills and the confidence to engage in the key issues of social justice and sustainability, not only in their own communities but also globally. In Scotland, professional values, learning for sustainability and leadership underpin and permeate the General Teaching Council professional standards for teachers also. And our overarching goal is to help schools weave together sustainable development education, global citizenship, international education, outdoor learning and children's rights into a coherent whole school approach that makes a lasting impact on the school curriculum, culture and the community, and also the school environment. The school campus is also very important too. And we're trying to do this through partnership And Education Scotland have set up a professional learning community on GLOW, which is our national digital learning environment. And we're working very closely with key organisations already engaged in this work in our schools. And the Learning for Sustainability Leaders programme will be piloted this year, I'm very pleased to say, and in doing so we'll be working with local authorities to promote capacity building and partnership working with third sector organisations also. And we're also working with key national education partners and a range of NGOs to align existing resources in the system in a way that enables schools to engage with this enriching agenda and to reap the benefits for young people so that they are nurtured as global citizens, able to thrive and contribute effectively to their communities and what is an increasingly globalised world. We also have the landmark legislation in the form of the Children and Young People's Act, which places the well-being of our children and young people on a statutory footing. And that ensures that children's rights properly influence the design and delivery of policies and services. And with that, consideration of children's cultural identity and values is absolutely central. And this can be seen across a range of policies that has been developed in education, but is also crucially based on evidence. And the most recent behaviour in Scottish schools research, which took place a few years ago, found that the promotion of positive behaviour through whole school ethos and values is the most helpful approach to improving positive relationships and behaviour. In fact, all learning communities across the early years, primary, secondary schools, the more specialised sectors, which focus on social emotional well-being and creating that positive school ethos based on mutual respect and trust are, we know, having the best impact and the most positive impact and improvement. So we can look to the future from a position of strength, but we also very much recognise, and I very much recognise, that there is always still much more to do. And we know that children and young people from lower income households in Scotland do less well, significantly so at all levels of our education system than those children and young people from better off homes. And the ambitions and achievements of our young people should never be limited by their background. And one of the biggest challenges that we face right across our education system is the fact that children from our most deprived areas are continuing to do less well than their fellow students. And that's why the Scottish Government, since I took up the post as Cabinet Secretary in November, we've made some very important announcements. The first one being a £51 million funding commitment to support local authorities to maintain teacher numbers at 2014 levels for the forthcoming year. And crucially, there was an announcement for over the next 4 years that the Scottish Government would invest £100 million in the Attainment Scotland Fund. And this fund is targeted at children and young people from our most disadvantaged communities. And in the first instance, this fund will cover 7 local authorities from the smallest in Clackmannanshire to the largest local authority, Glasgow. And while initially it is focused on 7 authorities, we will look at other ways to extend the reach of the fund. But by covering those 7 local authorities, as I said, from the smallest to the largest, we will actually reach 50% of Scotland's poorest children in the first instance. And that is part of a more finessed, targeted approach, allowing the flexible use of resources that will be targeted at the front line, at children in classrooms, but also crucially looking at the support that we can provide children and their families also within their own communities. And as part of that targeted approach, we are also continuing to strengthen our universal approach to raising attainment for all children. And I also announced earlier this year the appointment of 32 attainment advisors to support every local authority in its planning and coordination of local activities. There are other aspects that are currently being debated in Parliament in terms of the Education Bill, which is a very eclectic, wide-ranging bill looking to scoop up some outstanding legislative commitments. And I've taken the opportunity to insert some discrete provisions in the Education Bill in front of Parliament just now in terms of ensuring that every local authority has an identified Chief Education Officer, someone who is appropriately qualified and who is that Chief Education Officer in the same way that we have Chief Social Work Officers in Scotland who have that lead professional and expert responsibility. And also I'm very clear that both ministers and local authorities have to be responsible and have to report on the progress that we are making or the progress that we're not making in terms of closing the attainment gap. There are other measures that we have undertaken as a government that are focused on the practical steps that we can take to support children and their families, and one example of that would be the Access to Education Fund. And earlier this year I announced a £1.5 million extension to that fund, which is very much focused on removing the barriers to education. And last year 303 schools in Scotland benefited from that fund. I'm also very proud that the Scottish Government, unlike south of the border, has maintained the educational maintenance allowance to support young people to remain in post-16 education, whether that's at school or college. Again, it's a very targeted resource that is available to children in lower income families, and I was very pleased that a few months ago that we were able to announce the extension of that scheme. Currently 30,000 young people across Scotland benefit from educational maintenance allowance, and we will be able to extend the reach of EMA so that it will benefit over 50,000 young people in Scotland. And crucially, the final announcement they've made that I wish to share with you is in and around the development of a national improvement framework, which will give us the data and the evidence that we need to ensure that every child is achieving the standards that are set out within Curriculum for Excellence. We want to be able to better track and monitor the progress of individual children to ensure that all children are reaching their full potential. So, friends, can I leave you with the thought that I am absolutely determined that we continue on this journey together, that we continue to build on the progress being made, and that we strengthen our offering to children and young people, and all of our activity it has to be delivered in a way which will help us address the single biggest challenge that we currently face within Scottish education, and that is the inequalities of educational outcomes experienced by too many of our children from disadvantaged communities. And this government will not rest until every child in every community has every chance to succeed. But as we move forward together on that journey, it is always crucial that first and foremost that we listen to those voices of our children and young people, and listen to their testimonies and their life stories and their life experience to ensure that we are indeed listening and therefore meeting their needs as we strive to ensure that they get the very best start to their adult life. Thank you very much.